Today we are talking about state-backed blockchains. Are they dangerous? Are they useful? Are they less useful? Or are they going to bypass the rights that we have as citizens? I'm here today with Adrian Brink. Thank you for being here with me, Adrian.
Great to be here.
Okay, I'll start off the bat with the first question. Tell us a bit, walk us through your work at Anoma and some of the research that you're working on right now.
Yeah, so really in one sentence, Anoma is an intent-centric, privacy-preserving protocol for counterparty discovery and distributed solving and decentralized atomic multi-chain settlement. That sounds very complicated. You can think of this as, so if you come from the traditional world, it's a financial substrate. Because I think fundamentally what blockchains are going to be very good at in the next couple of years, like the first product market fit, is financial infrastructure. And the way I explain what blockchains generally do to like my aunt who's 70 is, you know how the financial system was written in the 80s in like some Java and Cobalt by a bunch of programmers back then. We are rebuilding the financial system for the next 40 years, but in a decentralized distributed fashion that is much more resilient and privacy preserving than existing financial systems. And Anoma is really pushing here the envelope of what does it mean to be money? How can you do decentralized compute over a bunch of money or a bunch of different assets? What do people actually want? Like being very intent centric. It's not that I want to send an asset from A to B. It's like I want to send an asset from A to B because I get something from B, right? It's like always I have some intent and I need to find counterparties across the internet in order to satisfy this intent. Currently, this is all centralized. And really, it's our job to decentralize a bunch of this stuff.
Let's go to basically the topic of the day. Majority of the governments across the world are being threatened by the blockchains. And we would like to understand why. As you mentioned earlier, the way that you would explain to somebody from your family that doesn't understand technology very well, the end users keep hearing the word blockchain and they see the government kind of like taking a very, very, very harsh stance against them. Why are governments so afraid of blockchains?
Um, so I have a very controversial opinion here. I think
That
it's, for one, they don't really understand technology. Governments are very threatened early on by the internet because it was a completely new technology. Everyone's very worried what it would do. And it's true, like it's going to change a bunch of things very fundamentally. But I think the biggest misunderstanding comes from not understanding what the technology is capable of. Because practically speaking, if I as a government, I should be threatened not because a decentralized financial system exists, but because it's transparent. If I am, let's say, the US government, if the world financial system moves to transparent Ethereum tomorrow, I have much bigger problems than I think anyone is currently thinking about, because all of a sudden North Korea can do sort of NSA level financial analysis over everyone's transactions. I think governments there aren't right now, but they should be much more worried about transparent systems, and that population's really starting to use transparent systems, because all of a sudden you're opening up your citizens to a bunch of hostile actors from foreign countries that you have no control over. Really, why they're currently scared of it, I think governments are very faceted, as in there are many different parts of the government. And I think sort of the loudest people are currently the tax people that seem to be worried that someone will use blockchains to evade some taxes. But when you actually talk to some other folks in the government, they're like, oh yeah, this is like great privacy tech. We'd love to use this. It's very easy to defend against hostile actors. So like I always think I think we're talking to the wrong people in the government. I think it's currently the tax people, and yes, sure, they want everything to be transparent, but it's because I think we're talking to the wrong people in the government.
let's talk about raising awareness on these dangers of state-backed blockchains. First of all, what are specifically these dangers, and how can we mitigate the risk so we don't stay in the way of adopting these technologies, and actually we help the governments to understand the benefits of them?
Yeah, I'm really not that worried about state-backed blockchains. Governments are generally, at least in the West, completely incompetent. There is almost zero chance that they are going to be able to deploy something like this. The governments currently don't run the financial system, and if they tried, it would fail within minutes. Like China may be able to pull this off because they're very centralized and have very effective control over some of the systems. But like, I'm not worried about the US government being able to build a blockchain that people could use. Like, I think this is not a concern that any of us should be having. I think we should be building good open source tech and really let the market decide. It's like, if you remember the early days of the internet, people like AOL tried to pitch people the idea of like, come to my walled garden AOL kind of thing. But clearly the open source alternative, just like a decentralized internet, won out because it was obviously the better choice. So personally, not very worried about government blockchains. I think though there's actually a really valid use case for them, which is stablecoins suck. Because with all existing stablecoins, you have counterparty risk because you have to trust like Tether as a company or Circle as a company with regards to USDT and USDC respectively. This is something where, for example, the Swiss government could actually be incredibly innovative, where they issue a digital Swiss franc on a Swiss blockchain run by the Swiss government, because they have currently the monopoly on printing Swiss franc notes anyway. So instead of printing them physically, they print them digitally. But then the trick is not to have the idea that everything now should happen on the Swiss franc chain, because this is frankly not scalable in any sort of sense, but rather have this blockchain be interoperable with other blockchains like Ethereum via IBC, so that on Ethereum, we can build DeFi primitives that use digital CHF, which are equivalent to physical CHF. And I think this is like the first governments that realize this will have tremendous advantages for the local currencies, because like a digital CHF issued by the Swiss government on a Swiss blockchain, but usable in Ethereum in a trustless manner, is like an order of magnitude better than anything that USDT or USDC currently offer.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier that governments are not yet at the level when they can understand the technology, or they can create a proper usage of the technology, even in their own benefit. However, there is a very big concern in the markets that blockchain can be used to violate citizen rights. Do you share the same view?
In the current model, yes, because transparent blockchains are significantly worse with regards to individual privacy and liberty than, like, transparent blockchains are significantly worse than the existing financial system. At least in the existing financial system, not everyone can run sort of a complete surveillance suite over the data, whereas in a transparent blockchain they can. Like, if you really want to surveil people, like, transparent blockchains are horrifying. And I think there's like very little chance that my parents will ever adopt a transparent blockchain, because it would not only mean that the government can see exactly what they do, which is currently not the case in like most of the Western world with regards to banks, but also their neighbors can see how much they earn, what car they drive, when they bought the car, right? Like all these kinds of things. So I think the biggest hurdle to actually adoption for blockchains is the transparency. Like we need good privacy primitives that are usable by people, because no one is ever going to opt into a fully transparent financial system, because it's just terrifying if everyone knows exactly how much money you make, where you spend it, how you spend it, what you spend it on.
It's like living in a glass house. Everyone can see
yes
at all times. So how do we preserve, what are some of the solutions to make sure that we don't reach to a level where blockchain becomes our enemy, and we have to choose between privacy and a world that benefits from the technology advancements of blockchain?
Yeah, I think honestly it's getting a lot better. This honestly a huge shout out to Zcash and the Zcash community there. I mean, they pioneered the idea of zero knowledge proofs back in like 2016, 2017, long before any of this stuff was at all usable, really. But nowadays, zero knowledge proofs are getting tremendously good. I mean, this is a bunch of the work we are doing with regards to Tiger, the multi-asset shielded pool, generally plonk-up, so general proof systems. And I think they're not, so zero knowledge proofs are really good for both computational compression, so making things very easy to verify, as well as computational privacy, hiding a bunch of the details. And so I would bet in the next 5 years, the space is going to evolve so rapidly that pretty much zero knowledge proofs will implement a privacy preserving financial system going forward.
Fantastic. So state-backed blockchains are not yet there to be a danger, to respond to our main question today.
I don't think there will ever be a danger. Because what government app have you, like what government technology have you used that you would use if this is like hosted on the internet and you had options? Like the Swiss train app, like that's good, but it's like one of the only government like built apps that I know that kind of works. If you look at the German government, nothing works. So the US government is mostly not digitized anyway. I'm not worried about them competing on the tech with us.
Fantastic. Okay, so one last question. Some of the exciting things that you're working on, share with us. Tell us a bit about the things that we will see coming up from Anoma in the next few months, maybe before end of the year.
Yeah, I think the two biggest things are Namada, which is it's very simple actually, just multi-chain, multi-asset privacy. Meaning any interoperable chain, this actually includes Ethereum here, you can move assets via two-way trustless bridge into Namada and use them there privately. You get all the nice features of viewing keys and so on. So you almost have like a financial, at least a financial transaction system that you can use with arbitrary assets with uniform privacy guarantees. So like if you have some ETH or if you have some DAI, USDC, USDT, your CryptoPunk, you can use this in privacy preserving manner for like half a cent or so and a 3-second block time. So that's Samada.net that's coming up later this year. Before then, we'll have a bunch of incentivized testnets and incentivized trusted setup. Yeah, and then later next year, we'll have mainnet Anoma really taking this idea of what it means for users to interact with decentralized systems, rather from an intent level than a transaction level, so that people can specify what they want to get out of the system, rather than saying, I want specifically this and having to find some centralized way to coordinate with counterparties.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adrian, for joining today and for sharing with us your views. Definitely, this is a conversation that we will keep having in the next few years. Where are we here between technology, privacy, and basic human rights to have access to our own information, to preserve our own information, make sure that the neighbor next door doesn't know exactly how much money we make. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you very much for having me.